the Biden administration just had this agency that are now proposing to do home visits to parents who are homeschooling their kids, for parents who don't believe in this ideology, because the children might be abused at home because the parents don't believe that they can be born in the wrong body. So that's the next wave. That's the next move to coming into the homeschools. The parents are unsafe and abusive, and don't you want kids to feel safe? It's the same psychological gambit. It's called compliance. And so I'll give you another example from my old world. Especially when you're doing close-up magic. When you're doing stage magic, you control the stage, and then there's the lights, and you bring people up. But largely, when you bring people up on a stage, they don't really do anything. They're just they're just touching the props, but there's nothing they can do to break anything unless they like kick it or something. But when you do close-up magic or parlor magic, people are really in your space, and they feel like they can touch and do things. Here's what I mean. If I see somebody and I want them to hold something, and I'm not sure if they're going to listen to my instructions or not, I'll ask them this one simple question. Are you right-handed or left-handed? If the person goes, oh, I'm right-handed, I'll go, okay, now that's compliance number one. And I'll say, okay, go ahead and put out your right hand, and I'm going to give them something to hold. And if they do that, they put out their right hand, and I put something on their hand, and they don't mess with it, I'll know that it's safe to give them something that might reveal the illusion or the magic trick. But if I say, are you right-handed or left-handed, and the person goes, why? Then I know I can't give that person anything. Or if they say right-handed, I'll say, put out your right hand, and then they purposely put out their left hand. They're not buying into the process of the trick. So if they do that, then I'll give them something to hold, but it won't matter what I give them. And then they'll mess with it, they'll do all these different things, and end up, those people actually become a very helpful for an illusionist, because they seem like they're looking at everything, and then when the illusion works out anyway, the audience go, man, this guy was really, really messing with him, and that guy couldn't find anything. So it actually adds to it. But when early magicians who kind of start off that way, they get very nervous dealing with people like that because they think they're going to mess them up. And so you have to learn how to, test compliance. That's what's happening to parents today. And then the example I gave you of the stickers. Come on, it's just a sticker. What's the big deal? Now you know what parents are going to be okay with it, what parents not. The little
and which ones are asking for written statements or whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm. That's their, are you right-handed or left-handed? It's just a sticker. I'm just asking you if you're right-handed or left-handed. What's the big deal? And that's the process. And so it's seeing this happen to people on a global, national level, using a lot of the same psychological gambits that we use in entertainment, it's been very disheartening, to be honest.
To use your, is a habit formulation, it's almost like this compliance became a habit.
Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
That will be the next nonprofit I start. Compliance is, I'll give you credit for it.
But it's a very profound idea, actually, because we, for whatever reason, we are in a society where compliance is enshrined. Tell me a little bit more about some of the materials that you've developed, because that's when I first became aware of you, was through these what I found to be very simplifying materials that you were providing to parents.
I mean, at the end of the day, we produce products and tools and strategies that are easy to consume, that are graphically very beautiful. We distill it down to things that the average parent can understand. They don't have to spend 10 hours reading it. And most importantly, we always give them a call to action. That's what Courage is a Habit really is about. It's about action. It's about staying on offense. But there's a couple of things I think last year I was really extremely proud of that we did. One of them was exposing what I would say 99% of parents still don't know, and it's called media literacy. We have a product that you'll link on your show notes called the Mainstream Misinformation Infiltration. And it's featuring an organization called the News Literacy Project. Now, just because your school doesn't use them specifically does not mean they're not using this scam called media literacy. But the product that we produce exposed them. They call themselves nonpartisan, but every journalist, every ambassador, every leader that they have is extremely left-wing. But they tout these people as nonpartisan and that they're credible sources. So today, many states already have a media literacy program. And here comes the language contamination. The word literacy, what parent doesn't want their child to be literate? In fact, we have a horrible literacy rate right now for reading. But when they say media literacy, the way they sell it to parents is, there's so much going on in social media today. Don't you want your kids to be able to decipher between misinformation, disinformation, and facts? And parents go, of course I do. Just like when they used to ask parents, don't you want kids to feel included? Same gambit, just different words. Same psychological gambit. So now parents think that media literacy means knowing when someone has actually fake news versus facts. What the media literacy and organization like the News Literacy Project is doing, it's brainwashing children to not listen to independent journalists or organization like Epoch or like what Chris Rufo's doing, and to instead only go back to the mainstream media. Because they know that people's trust in the mainstream media is all but zero. You can walk down the streets and even people who are not very political, if you ask them, do you trust the mainstream media? Most of them will go, no, not really. Because they've lied over and over and over again. And for those people who were pretty blind to it, COVID certainly woke up a lot of people with the mask and the vaccines and things. And so the media literacy programs in school, they're currently telling students, continue listening to 3-letter government agencies and mainstream media, and that's what media literacy is today. And we found that last year, and there's already 4 or 5 states that are mandating it as a graduation requirement, and about 15 or so states that have it in some way, shape, and form, and it's counting. They're going to try to get into all 50 states.
And so you're talking about this specific program that you've studied now and that you've explained to me that focuses on certain corporate legacy media entities as being the sole sources of truthful information.
That's exactly right. And of course, guess who's supporting an organization like News Literacy Project? All the legacy media, all the NBCs and CBSs and CNN. They even touted BuzzFeed as one of their credible sources. They've got these journalists who are completely left-wing, touting as their nonpartisan.
Well, and who believe, many of whom believe in so-called advocacy journalism. I mean, that's which another way to call that is propaganda creation, right? That there's a narrative, the media should reflect that narrative first, right? That kind of thing. I mean, it's still very difficult for people to understand that this type of journalism is actually what's being taught in many of the top journalism schools right now.
Right. And that's exactly what is in K through 12 today, and increasingly to make it a graduation requirement. So you can imagine if you can brainwash children to go back to listening to mainstream media again, how absolutely dangerous that is, because now they can feed these kids anything they want, and independent journalists that are doing really good work and good documentaries and good reporting, they won't even take the time to look at it because there's no critical thinking in schools.
Well, it's so, if there's anything we've learned over the past few years is how powerful, how powerful that type of indoctrination can be, even when you have some resiliency to it inherently, because some people are more resilient to it than others,
Sure.
right?
Yes, right.
But irrespective, it still leaves an impression, and it sort of pushes you, and even with so many people realizing that there's, the mainstream media is not very credible, right? It's still effective.
It is.
Yeah.
Absolutely it is.
So which states are these?
It's California, New Jersey, Delaware, and Texas. Almost every state has some form of it. Some states are funding more, and those 4 states are doing graduation requirements.